I'm glad we have everyone here tonight as we look at the book of Proverbs in the Bible. This book is the book of wisdom, and we're going to spend some time thinking about wisdom and foolishness and their consequences tonight and the rest of this term. Now, you may not have noticed, you may not have noticed that wisdom doesn't have much of a high profile in our society today. Don't get me wrong, society as a whole doesn't completely reject the idea of wisdom, but if you ask someone for advice, they will not explicitly say, well, the wise thing to do would be X or Y. Although when you're asking for advice, obviously you're asking what's the wisest, what's the best thing to do in this situation. Having said that, there are entire sections of our population today that completely ignore wisdom and are dedicated to folly. Most people would call them teenagers. Just kidding. But if you watch MTV, they're there. Seriously. Yeah. Seriously, the entertainment industry does not look for what is wise, but what is entertaining, and what is most entertaining is folly, also known as slapstick. Some of you might remember a movie called Jackass, which was based on the MTV exploits of a guy who's doing incredibly foolish things to himself and to other people.
It's more than one guy.
Anyway, of people who are doing foolish things to themselves and to other people. The irony of this is that instead of this group of people getting about 1 million phone calls saying, dude, that was so stupid, you could have been killed, etc., etc., we had millions of people copying an example and getting hurt. Now, the thing is, this was a movie about doing stupid things. I didn't want to say it like that. But do you get it? This guy got his 15 seconds of fame stretched out to 2 hours and has been rewarded for being dumb. But to think about wisdom, first of all, what is wisdom? Is it simply not following this guy's example? What do you think wisdom is? That was, I really meant you to answer that question. What do you think wisdom is?
Making the wise decision.
Yeah, you just used the word real definition, well done.
Oh, is it?
Sorry.
I agree.
Something in the tree in Pocahontas.
Yeah. Or Professor Dumbledore.
That's Professor Dumbledore is an example of wise. Well, let me give you an example of a definition of wisdom. Wisdom is being able to make decisions which will have good consequences rather than bad consequences. Okay? So take, for example, alcohol. We'll be talking about alcohol in a couple of weeks, but drinking too much alcohol is not wise. For most of you, it's illegal, but for most of us, drinking too much alcohol is not wise because you will do things, most likely do things that are dangerous or illegal or silly while you're drunk. Even if you don't, I know some of you don't do those things when you're not drunk. But the whole point of it is that you're far more likely to do it. Even if you don't, you still have to survive the hangover. But alcohol in itself is not a bad thing, but overindulgence is. Does that make sense? A wise decision would be not to get completely plastered. A wise decision would be perhaps not watching an entire season of TV shows the night before an exam.
Episodes in my HC.
Deciding to study and get a good night's sleep would be wise decisions at that point. Yeah. In fact, they're wise at any time, especially in exam season. So in our society, how do you become wise? How does the world at large think wisdom comes to you?
Knowledge.
Knowledge? Sometimes?
Age.
Age.
Must be.
Yeah, you must be really wise.
I was going to make I'm about to do an age joke. Well done. Yes. our society, age and experience are the two ways that you get wisdom. Actually, knowledge is not always the way that we get it.
Knowledge comes from age, therefore they're the same thing. So you said it.
Okay. Knowledge does not necessarily come from age.
Well, you know more when you're 20 than when you were 2. So.
Oh no!
But some people will know a lot more at age 15 than they will at age 45.
Well, that's because they lose their memory.
Not 6 years away. Okay. So you can actually be very book smart and still be foolish. Okay. So, for example, you can have a wise person who's not necessarily very old, but has had enough experience in the world to know that's a bad idea or that's a good idea. Normally in our world, people gain wisdom from experience. You make a mistake and then you go, I don't think I'm going to do that again because that hurt a lot.
You said they've got enough experience to know to do the right thing. Knowing is knowledge. So.
No.
I meant knowledge about the problem so you can make the right choice.
Let me say it another way. They have enough experience to make a decision that's going to be wise. So knowledge itself is not wisdom. You can be really, really, really smart and still foolish.
I don't get how you can know everything and then not be wise.
Because you make a dumb decision.
Why would you do that?
Because you're not wise. Let me give you an example.
I did not.
There's a guy who's he's very cluey. He's trying to open an LP bottle, like he's trying to open the valve on it, right? LP gas. And it's not working. He's actually turning it the wrong way, right? So he's not got that much experience. But instead of trying the opposite direction, he goes, okay, this handle obviously isn't giving me enough torque. So he gets a rod and extends it so he gets more force. That's a smart thing to do.
That's stupidity.
But it's not very wise because he snapped.
But knowledge would be
But
reading
his
on
knowledge of physics and how to work and
There is a
get
difference
force.
between wisdom and knowledge.
Wouldn't knowledge be reading the little thingy on the jar that says turn this way?
Okay, let me finish and come back to me later. That'll be because I've got more to say on the subject than knowledge.
Trust.
Okay? So let me give you an example. Okay, you can take someone who's in our society, someone who's very, very old, is like me. That was where I was going to go. Supposed to be wise. Someone who's really young, like my kids, is not wise, but not necessarily foolish. To be wise is to make a mistake or to see someone else make a mistake and not follow that example. To be foolish is to know the bad consequences and still do what is wrong. Let me give you an example that I ran into a lot when I was much younger. This is the Friday night, Saturday night crowd at the pub. Okay? I used to work at a nightclub. I've told you guys that before, I'm sure. No. I used to work at a nightclub and see the people come in Friday night.
I hate you.
Nick.
Do I need to separate the two?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, John, I go and
It's not a wise decision, man.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm just going to edit all this.
Oh, did he?
That's the only thing he's going to I used to work in a nightclub and people would come in Friday night, get plastered. Saturday night, get plastered. Sunday night, if Monday was a public holiday, get plastered. They get trashed each night and then they come back next week and do it all